Hello, it's Helen from Journal with Purpose and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd share something a little bit different with you, which is a creative project that I've been working on throughout March. So this is a tiny little book that I've made, and I made the outside from scrapbook paper, and I've then sewn in lots of different types of paper in here. And over on Patreon, I've started setting a creative challenge every month, and in March we're working on patterns. And the aim of that is to give us lots of different inspiration that we can try out in our journals, and just to get some confidence, perhaps trying out different things that we wouldn't usually have a go at. So over on Patreon, I shared some photos of this is inside my first book, because there's lots of patterns in there. And I also set up a Pinterest board with patterns from nature, fabrics, all kinds of things, just to try and give lots of inspiration. So I thought I'd share a little flip through with you of the different types of patterns that I created. And I also tried to challenge myself to use lots of different mediums as well. So for day one, I created this on dotted paper using watercolour. On day two, I used some Inktense paints on top of old book pages. And it's quite interesting for me to see how these different papers held up to mediums that I hadn't tried on them before. On this day, I actually glued down this right-hand side is some patterned paper that I really liked, and then I painted the back of that book paper all in green gouache, and then used some paint pens to add the little flowers on the top. So I think that was some Posca acrylic paint pens. And I'd never tried doing that before, but I really liked how they looked side by side. On this one, this is Tomo River paper, which I absolutely love for watercolour. So I added some watercoloured kind of leaves and stripes, and then used a white gel pen to add some details on top. And on the back, just some more simplified watercolours all the way down. For day 6, I picked out one of my stencils. I think it's the Donna Downey's bubble stencil, and I used some metallic pencils through it on black paper, and I'd never tried that before, actually using a pencil through a stencil, and I don't think I'd tried those metallic pencils out onto black paper actually, and they just looked beautiful, so I was really happy with that. And so the whole aim of this was for me to think, what can I learn from doing this in a really tiny book with no pressure? What can I learn and try out that I might want to replicate in my journals when I want to add some little creative elements? So for day 7, I used Inktense pencils. And the blue, I used a navy blue, which did just still show up on the black, and then added some white dots, and I hadn't used my Inktense pencils in ages. For this one, I used a couple of zebra mild liner brush pens, and again added white details. For this one, I was looking through my fabrics, and I really liked the pattern on this, so I wanted to keep that in my little patterns book as a reminder that that would be quite a nice pattern to add on one of my journal pages. So I just sewed 3 little strips together and made a pocket on here. This one was using acrylic paint for the rectangles and squares, and then just kind of doodled some lines around the outside. And some of these I definitely got ideas from Pinterest, and then just tried to create my own thing with it. For this one, I used Ecoline Liquid Watercolour by Royal Talons, and I just dropped lots of it onto the page and then used a kitchen towel to blot some off, and this is mixed media paper. Then used a compass, drew a circle, and added lots of kind of little almost Zentangle doodles onto there. And that one, definitely again, some of the ideas on that came from Pinterest, but I really liked these particularly, and I thought they would look great on a journal page. This one was some coloured pencils, I think they're Brunzeal ones. For this was watercolour paints and stickles. I don't know if you can see the stickles on there. They're like little glittery dots. Added those. And I then did a freehand watercolour mandala. It did go wonky in the middle, but I wanted to do something quick without measuring out all of the different sections. So it was still fun to do. And again, that one's back onto Tomo River paper. That was taken, there was a photograph, it was nature, I'm not sure quite what it was the side of now, I can't remember if it was mushrooms or something like that all laid out, but I just picked the outside shapes and then added some of the line details for the inspiration for that one. This was watercolour one brush stroke, so I literally just had my paintbrush and was just pressing down hard, then lifting it back up, all the way up and down. And I really liked the pattern, but it was quite good for me as well in terms of just a bit of a practice with my paintbrush and the brush control. So this one was Inktense Paints, doing little polka dots. I love polka dots, and that was a good reminder for me to perhaps add some of those as strips almost to look like washi on my journal pages. This one was Inktense Paints, creating squares. This is one of the journaling cards that comes from my printable bundle. So this bit at the top was there, but then the rest of it I just added lots of doodles using the Pigma micron pens, bringing all the kind of leaf shapes outwards. This again was Inktense Paints, so I just dropped big blobs of paint and then flicked them outwards with the paintbrush and then added some little black dots on top. This again was Inktense Paints. I haven't used them in ages and I used them lots in here, so I was really pleased to get those back out again. And somebody on Patreon said these looked a bit like donuts, and I love that. So once I had my kind of donut shapes, I just added different doodles inside each of them. For this one I used Edding brush pens. And it's quite nice because I tend to sit down and do these in the evening. I try and limit myself to maybe no more than 10 or 15 minutes unless I really want to spend a long time. And I found it quite relaxing just sitting and doing these patterns. So this was a coloured pencil rainbow, and I then used a white gel pen in between each of the coloured rays coming out. That was a Uniball Signo gel pen in white. Just lots of wavy patterns. These pens were sent to me by Cult Pens to try out, Karin Deco metallic markers, and I love those. I don't know how well it picks up on camera, but they've got a lovely metallic sheen to them. So just tried out some different patterns with those. For this one, watercolour circles, and then used black ink again just to add some different patterns and designs inside of those. And for that I just picked some patterns from inside my book and added a little bit inside each of the circles. That again was watercolour paint. And for this I tried some coloured pencils on craft paper. I really like how that turned out. I don't tend to create that often on craft paper, so again, it's been interesting to see. And that one I used then the Uni Emot fine liners on craft paper. And for the last day, that was actually, I looked at a photo of the inside of a kiwi and just used that to try and form some kind of pattern and play with different colours. And for that, I used watercolour pencils. So that's my little patterns book. I've now just set another challenge on Patreon for April, and if you are interested in that sort of thing, I'll leave the links down below. We've got a private Facebook group as well set up for everybody who's taken part, if they want to share their photos of their creative challenge pages, either on there or on Instagram. But if you just want to have a go at doing something like this, of course you don't have to make a book. You could just decide to do 30 days of patterns, perhaps on your one journal page, and draw out some boxes or circles to fill in. So I really hope you've enjoyed seeing something a little bit different. If you have enjoyed the video, it'd be great if you leave it with a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, I would love it if you consider subscribing. As always, a huge thank you to everybody who's joined me over on Patreon. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking with you really soon in my next video.